I think if you want to have success dating as a girl, especially in the modern day age, you have to kind of be a control freak, essentially. Even though that word obviously has a bad connotation, but the way I look at it is, we all have certain qualities and traits within us, right? And alchemy, spiritual alchemy or energetic alchemy, whatever you want to call it, is all about being able to take the dark parts about yourself, or maybe like the darker tendencies. For example, if you have obsessive tendencies, if you can learn to channel that into something that is productive or that benefits you in the end, then I see that as no harm, no foul, right? So the same thing goes with, I feel like a lot of women, whether we like to admit it or not, we do have control issues to some degree, and it's not surprising, right? It's not something that I don't think women should be villainized for it, because if you think about it, it makes total sense, because we're basically prey in this societal system that has been set up by the patriarchy. And so logically speaking, yes, you would I don't think it's far-fetched to imagine that a natural consequence of women being prey or being like the weaker sex and just being more disadvantaged in our current societal system, I think it makes a lot of sense that it results in a lot of women subconsciously or sometimes consciously. I think it makes sense that it comes out in the form of women being control freaks and wanting to control every single aspect of their life that they can, right? The problem is, where it goes wrong is that a lot of women don't know how to harness the actual positive potential of that trait. And so it's not going to end well, because how can you control another human being? We're all sovereign beings. We all have our own free will, and we all have the right to exercise our own free will. So that's where a lot of women go wrong. I feel like they try to control their husbands or their children, or they try to control their image, right? And that, to a certain extent, yes, that's important to be able to control your image and kind of take the reins, so to speak, on how you're perceived in whatever community that you're trying to infiltrate or rise up the ranks in. But again, some women often take that to the extreme, right? To where it's like they'll portray this angelic, perfect figure on the outside, but then secretly behind the doors, they're a massive bitch, or they're a downright evil, something like that. But one area that I would argue, or that I'm here to posit as an area that I actually think, I would say, if you have this urge to control things, out of everything, you should probably direct it towards the area of dating men or dealing with men in any type of, one-on-one or romantic scenario. Because in order to get the outcome, to get the dynamics that you want in a certain relationship, you kind of have to. But you have to do it skillfully, of course. So you can't do it in a forceful way to where the other person feels very strongly that you're trying to directly tell them what to do, That typically doesn't go over well. Like if you just meet a guy and then a week into talking to him, all of a sudden you're demanding to have access to all of his personal accounts and things like that. Of course, that's gonna eventually result in you pushing the other person away. But when I say control freak, I mean as much as you can, you need to master the art of steering things, or crafting the situation that you want behind the scenes, and then leaving room once you've crafted the situation that you want, once you have kind of made that fortified masculine container, if you will, of how you want a certain experience to go down with a man, then it's up to the man that is the most qualified to just step in and fulfill his role there. Right. So, for example, you guys know, I have certain criteria for if men want to date me or take me out to lunch or dinner. I never ask the man, or I never step in to kind of suggest what place we should go to or what day we should meet. I always let the man lead that part, and I don't put forth effort into leading him to ask the question either. If he seems like he's shy or hesitant, I just sit back until he gathers up the courage himself to ask me out directly. So phrases such as, oh, we should go out sometime, or I would love to take you out on a date one day, those phrases don't work on me. I have zero reaction to those phrases. I'm like completely gray rock, because to me, those are not like true, those are not actual invitations, you know, to go on a date. And then on top of that, I have to actually like be open to that particular man. If he is someone that's completely not my type at all, or I know for certain that like no amount of, you know, mental gymnastics could convince myself that I find this man attractive, or that I'm okay with being seen in public with him, and then I still won't even accept the date. So in that sense, do you see what I mean? Like, I 100% control the conditions under which I'm willing to go on a date with a guy. I don't control the actual guy. I don't like walk up to, you know, anytime a guy expresses interest in me, I don't meet him with this like really arrogant attitude or this entitled attitude of, oh, well, you have to take me to like a 5-star restaurant, or you have to do A, B, C, D. I never express it in that way, but it's like I make it known to the guy, to the suitor, that we won't be going on a date unless you meet these criteria. That's how I like filter out the ones that can't meet my expectations or criteria. That's how I know that, okay, so these guys are just not compatible with me, and it's no harm, no foul, you know? It's a good way to filter them out without having any hard feelings or misunderstandings on each side. And the guys that are willing to jump through all my hoops, well, they're the ones that are able to remain and actually, you know, get in the ring, stay in the ring, so to speak. Sorry, I am trying to multitask right now, and it's not working because it's so hot. I'm like so distracted. Be a control freak, ladies, is what I'm trying to say. If you want to have a certain dating experience, if you want princess treatment, you want a provider guy, you want someone that picks you up and, you know, pulls out the seat for you, picks nice restaurants and stuff, it starts like, that's all actually, believe it or not, it's pretty much all up to you. There's 99%, I would say, you can control that. The 1% that's left up to chance is just the fact that, you know, there's always going to be like variability on the off chance the guy might be completely different, or just completely not act the way that you expected. But even chances of that are very low if you've already vetted them out with all of the tests that you put in place that he has to pass before he can even get the chance to take you out on a date, right? So that's why a lot of you end up being very disappointed, I would say, in a lot of your dating experiences, is because you're not being enough of a control freak behind the scenes, right? So we're doing this in a way that you're not imposing anything on the guy or the other individual himself. So you're not ruffling people's feathers in that way, but you're controlling like your standards, basically. Setting your standards, having high standards is your way of controlling the situation to where you can leverage the best outcome for yourself. All right. So you have to like be very, very intentional and very clear about your standards. This is not just a simple, oh, well, I'm the prize mentality because I'm the princess, he should treat me as such. It goes way deeper than that, right? It's about calling in a situation that actually feels good to you. And by nature of whatever guy that is able to meet your conditions and who's willing to do that, then you know that he wants to be there too, right? If he's still the last man standing after all of your tests. If it progresses to the point of him legitimately asking you out to dinner, or to basically give some of your precious time to him, right? Use some of your precious time to entertain him and give him some company. That's what they're asking you to do. So they always come straight out the gate to take from you, which means that from the moment of the first interaction, from the very first second, it's up to you to tip the scales back in your favor. That's why you have to set really high standards and make them, okay, I hate to say it this way, but you have to make them jump through hoops, because like they're not going to understand any other way. It's not going to do you any favors. It's going to go in one ear out the other if you sit there and try to lecture him or try to, you know, argue with your words. They don't care about any of that. They only respond to what you require and what your actions are, right? So if you, like, let's say you make a request that, okay, well, can you pick me up at my house for the day because I live a little bit far away or it's not convenient for me. And if he tries to talk you into doing something that's into getting there in a way that is easier on him, that's not what you originally required, then you need to stand on business basically, and whatever way you want to go about it. But typically the mistake that a lot of you ladies make is that you keep talking, like you keep trying to convince him with your words. That's not what you do. You go silent, okay? You go cold. You put him on ice if he tries something like that. And then you'll know if he's really interested in you. If he really finds you worth all the effort, he'll come back, okay, of his own accord and say, hey, actually, you know what? I'll be happy to pick you up or something like that. If it's not that, then it was never worth your time in the first place. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, sorry. I say all this to say that like it was already too late to require him to go out of his way to pick me up from my house. But that doesn't mean that I couldn't even the scales by adding more unnecessary drinks to the tab, right? That doesn't mean that I couldn't also, subtly continue sending the message that time with me is not free. Your enjoyment of being in my energy, being in my presence, smelling my perfume and all of that, that's not free. It comes at an hourly fee, okay? Or every 30 minutes, even if that's not like necessarily cash in this instance, because I'm not, a lady of the night. He didn't hire me for those types of services, but I'm going to make it felt. I'm going to make sure he feels that every time that clock ticks another hour or another 30 minutes, it's going to come out of his pocket somewhere. You understand what I'm saying? So that's what I was doing. Not overboard, of course. Like, again, it was just 2 drinks. And then that Giga iced tea drink at the Zeteria. But I could tell when he made that comment to me that, wow, I don't think you're going to be able to finish that iced tea. That's when I knew. I was like, oh, okay. So now he's feeling it, right? Now, finally, he's feeling the inconvenience, which again, I had to engineer it to that point before this motherfucker could even feel a little bit of a sting or an inconvenience to him in his wallet, right? But like, since I'm a professional succubus, I know how to do this. A lot of you girls are just, I don't know what you guys are doing out there. And then you come home. The thing is, like, yeah, you don't do this because you're programmed to be nice girls, and then you come home and you feel dissatisfied, right? Or you feel slighted in some way, but then you can't quite articulate or understand what it is. So then you gaslight yourself into thinking that, oh, well, maybe I'm tripping, maybe I'm just like overthinking, or I'm on my period, so maybe I'm being overly emotional. No, that's not what it is. It's because of this dynamic that I'm describing to you right now that you didn't know. You don't know, first of all, like the universal law that exists, which is that the masculine is supposed to come out of his pocket, okay? He's supposed to pay. He's supposed to make all the efforts and prove himself in order to be worthy of the feminine's presence. And like usually, right, in my case, I'm experienced enough to where I already set up every single situation from the beginning to where that dynamic is already like a prerequisite. It's already preset. But in the off chance that I slip up or I miscalculate, like in this instance here, when I ended up, when I realized that, okay, there's been a miscalculation here and this guy is actually getting the better part of the bargain, right? Because I thought that, okay, well, I have nothing to lose. I have nothing to lose, and at least I stand to gain a free meal, right? No, very wrong, okay? Because I realized that, oh, this is actually easier for him still at this point, which is why I had to go into savage mode and start ordering Giga iced teas and such. And it's not about the actual monetary amount, right? Because depending on the man, it doesn't, like, depending on what tax bracket the guy is, the actual money that is spent on the date. Oh my God, my hair is driving me crazy. Sorry, my bangs are like not cooperating with the heat. It's not about the actual money, okay? It's about the fact that you have to make him feel the sting, basically. And then if he's typically if he's a healthy man, like healthy in the sense that he has control over his emotions and things like that, which this guy did, then he'll just he might make a funny comment, right? And if he's unhealthy, or if he has like narcissistic tendencies, if he has a little bit of the mean streak, then he'll typically make a remark that gives that part of himself away as well. So you see, like, either way, no matter what the outcome is, you have set up the chessboard in a way that reveals the important parts of himself to you as a woman. This is important information that you need to know, preferably sooner than later. And every guy is going to mask and be on his best behavior for at least like the first couple of dates, right? So you need to get with the program, ladies, okay? This is not about just like, we're not doing it just for the sake of waste his time or waste his money. I mean, like, more power to you if that's what you personally feel fulfilled by. But there's a deeper reason here, which is that you need to get data. You need to get information on who he really is. And the only way you're going to get him to reveal those things about himself is when you put him into situations of, I don't want to say duress, but yeah, when you like push him, okay, and challenge him in certain situations and make him feel, he has to feel a little bit uncomfortable, whether it's going out of his way to pick you up for the day, and he is not used to doing that because most girls are 50-50 pick-me-ass chicks that see no problem with going out of their way to meet a guy, even though they already put in the upfront work and investment by the fact that they have to get their whole makeup, hair, and outfit together. So it's not equal already off the bat if you guys meet at some midpoint, halfway point between both of your residences, because you still put in more by default than he did in terms of energy and investment into the date as a woman, right? All the time that you spend on your makeup and hair and stuff. Meanwhile, all he does is hop in the shower and maybe shave his beard. So it's not even the fact that like, if he comes to pick you up, he's not doing you a favor. It's more, that would be, to me, that's like an even playing field at least. Cause it's like, okay, I spent an hour doing my makeup and hair and you spend an hour driving to my place to come pick me up so that I don't have to spend another hour on the train, you know, like that sounds much more equitable to me.